Hi, good morning, gentlemen. Portia's having some technical issues. Oh, maybe she just solved them. All right, Portia, are you with us? All right, looks like she's connecting, but we might be good now. Portia, are you with us?
Hopefully.
All right, I can hear you. Excellent.
Okay, great. Good morning.
Good morning.
I am trying to connect. Can you hold off on letting participants in for the moment?
Yep, I'm not going to let anyone in until you tell me.
Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen. There, it's working. Good morning, Nicole.
Hi. There you are.
Thank you so much for helping this morning. My computer has completely crashed, and so I've just slowly been working this morning to get it back up and running. And it did a complete reset of all the factory settings. So all of my passwords and all of my, everything that you rely on to automatically put you in. And they always say, don't use the same password for every website. So you can't get, so all of them are different. So I'm trying to find all the passwords and log in back into my email, my calendar, and everything at the same time. So just a few quick updates. Jerry had to pull out at the last minute because he got a new job. So it's just going to be the two of you.
Congratulations.
Don't feel rushed to cut yourself short. Originally, if you look at the agenda or the outline I sent out, it said approximately 5 minutes each for intros. We can take that a little bit longer because not only will the intros be longer, but then the sections will be longer when we ask the panel questions because we won't have that third person. Okay. So what I'm going to do is when I introduce you, instead of telling everyone your whole bio, I'm going to do a brief bio, and then you can fill it in with everything else that you sent me on your bio to give you some more stuff to talk about. Right? So I'm going to introduce you, and then after I introduce both of you, then I'll say, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey as a CHW, including more details about your specialization and or interests. And so that'll give you more time to talk about all the different organizations you've worked for. I know you both have special interests, volunteer activities that you're interested in, other networks that you work with. So I know Bomani does some stuff with HIV, and Peter does some stuff with Soul Sisters. So if you want to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. On a phone, so I'm feeling you right now.
I know.
I had that. That's my phone is where I stored everything so that I could find my passwords, and I got a file that had all that in it.
It's devastating.
It's
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We're just going to wait a few minutes to allow some people to enter. I know we have quite a few people in the waiting room. You should be automatically muted when you come in. If you are not, please go ahead and mute yourselves. We will have a question and answer section at the end of the webinar. So please write down your questions, save them to the end, or you can always enter them into the chat. If you've just joined us, good morning. My name is Portia Fisher. I'm the Education and Registry Manager at MISHWA. We're just going to be waiting for a few moments to allow people to enter from the waiting room and continue to join the webinar. You've just joined.
Hi, Portia.
Good morning. You should be on mute. Hello? Good morning. If you take your mute off to say good morning, just remember to put it back in. Good morning, everyone. I see Miss Felicia. Good morning, Miss Felicia.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So we're just going to wait one more minute for people to join. If you just came, you are in the Male CHW Impact and Perspectives panel webinar. My name is Portia Fisher. We are just waiting for a little less than a minute. We still have people entering from the waiting room. If you're not on mute, go ahead and hit that mute button. We're going to get started in less than a minute. I still see people coming in. We have a nice group this morning. Good morning, everyone, if you just joined. I'm going to get started in just a few seconds here.
There we go. Won't be so dark over here.
Good morning to Tanya Jefferson from Genesee Health Plan in Flint. Welcome. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Portia Fisher. I am the Education and Registry Manager at MSHWA, and today we have a wonderful panel discussion for you about the impact and perspectives from our male CHWs. We originally had 3 male CHWs planned for today. Nicole, if you could please hit record so we can make sure that we have this to put on the website. If you get disconnected, go ahead and try to come back in. We will let you in. If you can't get back in, just know that this will be recorded. And at the end of the webinar, you can fill out a survey and you'll be able to earn 1 CEU for your attendance. The original 3 panels that we had included Jerry Burton. I'm very sorry to say that he was recently elevated to a new position and will therefore be unable to attend. But we want to send out congratulations to him and wish him the best of luck on his new endeavors. The first of our remaining panelists include, I'll start by introducing Mr. Bomani Gray. Bomani was given the name Bomani, which means warrior in Malawian, and he has since dedicated himself to becoming a community warrior and committed himself to a life of public service as a community and education advocate. He is currently the program coordinator for Fathers Forward with the Detroit Health Department and is pursuing his certification as a doula. Bomani is also a husband and father of 4. In addition to Bomani today, we have Mr. Peter M. Williams, who also works for the Detroit Health Department, and he currently serves as the Fatherhood Community Health Worker for the Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention Program within the Division of Health Promotion. And as the only African-American male certified lactation counselor in the state of Michigan, Peter speaks to men and men's groups about breastfeeding and breastfeeding support. So a very warm welcome to both of our panelists this morning. Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to get started with Bomani just because of alphabetical order. So Bomani, we've told everyone the meaning of your name. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey as a male CHW, including your areas of specialization, interest, and volunteerism?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Like you said, my name is Bomani Gray. I've been working with males approximately maybe about 15, 16 years. The beginning of that process started in Head Start, and maybe even sooner than that. I had 2 children that started Head Start, and I met this ambitious teacher who kept asking me to be on their board. And I was like, 1, I don't have time, and I have no interest on being around any more children than I have. And that she kept asking, and one day, as I was walking my daughter in, I walked past in the lobby, and I see my name running for president. And I was like, what? So she took it upon herself, put me up there. Mr. Gray, I think you would be great at this, One thing led to another. I got involved in the Head Start program and did not know how valuable of resources it was to the community and to some of those parents. And really got to saw how policies work and just the inside nuts and bolts of that program, and kind of like took off from there. That led into a position working with Head Start, and we had then just started fatherhood in the state of Michigan with Head Start. I think it was the first, I want to say maybe in the country, but I'm not going to go that far, but the first in Michigan to start that in Detroit. And ever since then, just got really involved with not really helping dads, but being a sounding board for fathers and men, and really sharing my experience with these men that I went through being a dad. As you said, Portia, I am a father of 4, but one of the interesting things is when I first met in my prior relationship, she had a child. So really got me into being a father at a young age of 22 because her son was 2 then, which he's my son, and he's 30 now. So might be telling my age there, but that's okay. And he's adult. He has 4 children, graduated from university. So those experiences really impact me because I think a lot of time men don't have organizations or groups that they can be heard in. And especially men dealing with different obstacles just like that, being not only a father, but being a extra father to this child, having a biological father who was not in his life, and dealing with the relationships and all that. I thought gave me a kind of like a rich background on that piece. So kind of went from there professionally, and it turned into something that I don't even know what else to do. So I guess I stumbled into the doula piece and went to a Focus Hope thing, and this young woman was talking about being a doula, and I was like, wow, that is so interesting. I said, I wonder how that would work if a dad had a doula, you know, a support on that. And she told me who to hook up with. I hooked up with Bella, which is an organization out of Chicago. Told them my background, another board that I was not lobbying for. They asked me to sit on that board. They flew me out to Oklahoma, Tulsa to do the doula certification, the first part of it anyways. And yeah, I'm on that journey because I think it's fascinating when you look at males who are going through the pregnant stage. And I feel bad for my own experience because I didn't know all these things that were going, like the hormones that men have and women have, and you know, being in the delivery room, the smells, the blood, like it's all these things that I was learning, and I'm saying, wow, I really robbed my wife of her experience here, and I robbed myself of being connected in that spiritual place from just lack of information and lack of knowledge, and nobody really telling me that. So I'm feeling very excited about that journey because I just do believe that if men get involved from the ultrasound, it increased the risk of them not leaving and being absent. And that doesn't say that if a man is not married to the woman or not living in a house, doesn't mean that he's not taking care of his child. They could be co-parents outside of that home. And I want to help that process too, because I also was a part of that too early on in my life when my mother got remarried in her life. So yeah, I'm very excited about working with dads and not being the one that's telling them what to do, but just really listening to them and giving them the information on those questions that they may have. So last thing before I let Peter jump in is I think that's why Peter and I work well together, because I was raised in a single household with my grandfather. Peter was raised in a 2-parent household. So we have this great dynamic that brings that together with the group of men that we touch here in Detroit, Michigan. So with all that said, sorry for being long-winded. I will end on that note.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing, Bomani. What a fascinating background you have. You're really a role model to CHWs and male CHWs in particular. Moving on to Peter. We'd like to welcome him, a colleague of yours at the Detroit Health Department. We know your name, Peter. We know a little bit about you, but could you please give us a little more background about yourself, your journey as a male CHW, and a little bit more detail about your specializations, interests, and volunteering?
Sure. Would like to give one correction. They've rearranged some of the pieces on the chessboard. So Bomani and I are actually in the same program. I'm the community health worker for fatherhood with the Fathers Forward program. So they've moved me into a different division, but no harm, no foul. I have been involved in some form of community work since I was a teenager. I remember when I was in about the 7th or 8th grade when a representative from the Keep Detroit Beautiful Teens came to our school and told us about how litter was so terrible in the city and it was trashing the city, and we could be involved in helping do something about that. And I loved that idea. So I got involved with civic activity from the time I was a kid and have always done some form of that. Like Bomani, I had parents who stressed service and being, if you're not being a part of the solution, then you're being a part of the problem. Just so get in there and do something. Working as a community health worker, I did that back in the late 90s. I see Brenda Smith is on the call. Brenda and I were both with the Detroit Health Department with a program called the Village Health Workers, which was the Detroit Health Department's first crack at lay community health workers. And we didn't realize how on the forefront of things we were when we were doing that. We were just doing neighborhood activism because we understood that people in many communities in Detroit didn't have access to healthy food, that they weren't attending necessarily because they had so many other things going on. They were missing attending to their own personal health and sometimes the health of their children. So we got involved in taking those messages of healthy living practices out to people in communities to make a healthier community, a healthier city, makes for better lives. And the program was going gangbusters, really. We had some grant issues that sort of brought the program to a close, although the group of community health workers on the east side of Detroit called the East Side Village Health Workers, they're still going. You know, they took the program under themselves and ran with it, which is a beautiful thing. Why not? That means that the community was empowered by what we were doing and they were able to embrace it and take it over. Ultimately, that's really what you would like to see a community do when you come in with some sort of an intervention, that they embrace what you're doing and can take leadership for their own community. I am a certified lactation counselor. I came into that through working for the health department in an interesting sort of a way. We are big supporters of the Black Mothers Breastfeeding Association. And we went to the Black Mothers Breastfeeding Association annual meeting as a group. And one of the commenters was speaking about how there's often a disconnect between the young mothers that are in Detroit hospitals and the lactation counselor who comes to them to talk to them about breastfeeding, often from wildly different upbringings. And so there's a communication disconnect between them. And she said, you know, there needs to be, being a Black woman, said there need to be more lactation counselors that look like me. Now, I had just come from doing a series of focus groups with men, asking them about parenting, fatherhood, and we talked about breastfeeding. And to a man, all these guys supported breastfeeding because they saw that breastfeeding was natural. They distrusted formula because they distrust big companies that were trying to sell formula, and they didn't know what was in it. One of the guys said, you know, I don't trust that stuff. Why do you think they call it formula? I thought, okay, well, whatever brings you to the right side of the issue, it's fine with me. But I mentioned, well, you know, one of the guys said that he wanted his wife to breastfeed because he thought it was the most natural thing to do, but she said that it hurt. And so he said, okay, well, fine then. He went out and bought formula because he was trying to be as supportive of her as he possibly could. Now, I mentioned, had he known that it shouldn't hurt and there are ways to minimize the pain and make breastfeeding easier, and there are people who can teach you how to do that, then maybe we'd have had one more child who was getting this important nutrition at the beginning of their lives. So maybe there needs to be some certified lactation counselors that look like me. Now, I meant someone ought to do that. And people at the health department said, that's a good idea. Peter ought to do that. And they sent me to become a lactation counselor, and I've embraced it since then. It's great to be able to introduce men to something that we were often ignored in. men are taught that there are many things that have to do with parenting and with pregnancy and with women's health that have nothing to do with us, and so we're not a part of it. But if invited in, we're absolutely willing to do. And supporting our partners while they're breastfeeding, supporting them in the act of breastfeeding, that is something that men have shown over and over again that we are way willing to do. It's just a question of, are we available to do it, and are we asked to do it? Because we're often told, you know, in things that have to do with parenting or with breastfeeding, something like that, that you wait until she asks you for your help and then you offer it. A story that I often tell, my father got up from the time he was in the Marines when he was a young man until he died, woke up freakishly early in the morning and would do his lesson plans. He was a teacher and things like that early in the morning. And one day when he and mom were first married, dad was sitting up and waiting for her to wake up so he could get something to eat. My father was from the Deep South, and he was taught that men have no place in the kitchen unless a woman asks you to come in and do something. Other than that, stay out of the kitchen. You ask permission if you want to go in there. So he thought he needed to wait for her permission, or wait for her to wake up before he could get something to eat. Well, one day he was really hungry. He wakes mom up and says, listen, do you mind if I go in and make myself some breakfast? I'm really hungry. And she said, no, make me breakfast while you're in there. But he had been raised to believe that unless he had her permission to get into certain fields of life, then he wasn't to. And many fathers at the beginning of the child's life have been raised by families like my dad were raised in, to believe that you don't get involved in this unless your wife or your partner says, I need you to do this, and then you do it. And so changing that is one of the things that dynamic is one of the things that I look forward to doing, in letting men know, number one, there's a place for you and you can step in and offer your assistance, and she wants you to do that. She just sometimes doesn't think that you're interested because we don't look like we're interested when all of this is going on. And part of my role is demystifying breastfeeding, letting men know what's going on, and letting them know what, in fact, can you do that is going to make things easier for her. Breastfeeding can be difficult. To make no mistake, it isn't always just the easy road that we would like it to be, but though there are problems that are solvable, and there are things that we can do as men to make that a lot easier road. So teaching men about breastfeeding, teaching them about what they can do, and demystifying what breastfeeding is all about is one of the things that I really like doing. It's sort of like paying forward something that I wasn't able to do. My wife and I are adoptive parents, and so breastfeeding wasn't a part of what we were doing. And I went out and did like the gentleman that I had spoken to. I bought the most expensive, best formula I could get because I thought I'm gonna get him the best thing possible. And I bought one that claimed to be the closest to breast milk. It wasn't until I learned what was in formula and what's in breast milk that thinking that the difference was here and there, and realizing that it's here and there, that actually made me angry. And because I thought, hey, I was lied to. Well, I want to see to it that men know what the deal is and know what they can do, that breast milk is what I like to call the best food your child's ever going to have for the rest of their life. If they can get it, make sure they do.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Peter. We appreciate your insight. Again, you are a role model to CHWs, and especially male CHWs everywhere, not just in the state of Michigan. So again, if you have any questions, you can always put them in the chat. We will be having a Q&A after the panel. So please don't forget or write them down so you can share them at the end. Moving back to Bomani now, I'm going to ask him the first of the panel questions. And so we know a little bit about your background now, but what are some of the major obstacles that you faced as a male CHW in your areas of specialization in particular?
All right. Well, thank you, Peter, for leaving me 5 minutes. But, yes, no problem. Just joking, Peter. Him and I joke like that in the office. So some of the obstacles, I think, being a CHW and probably just being a male in the social work world is just being a male. And also adding on being a Black male in a world that's pretty dominated by white women who are social workers. So sometimes being in those rooms is like you're almost like the invisible man. They're talking about male programs, and nobody's really asking you to insert anything, or when you do insert something, it's always said to be, oh, that's cute. Oh yeah, maybe we should do that. And I'm thinking, yeah, probably so. So, I mean, that is a difficult piece for myself when I first started. Now, being a little older, I don't apologize for my male views. However, I try to be very thoughtful for the women that are in the room, because I think they are somewhat the ones who have been carrying the buckets for males. So it's a balancing act. I think most women who appreciate or maybe respect the male's perspective is very receiving of that, because they don't see it as threatening or anything like that. So yeah, it's different. You know, sometimes voicing your thing up, because I'm surrounded by women all the time, you know, my wife, my daughters, and is a good sounding board for putting my masculinity in check, and also raising my game up to make me question some of the things why I think that way too. So it's a good, and sometimes it's a bad. So yeah, that's my perspective.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing, Bomani. Moving back to Peter. So make sure you can unmute. Same question. What are some of the major obstacles you faced as a male CHW, especially in your areas of specialization and interest?
I think the biggest obstacle, I agree with Bomani, it's just the fact that you are male in a field that is dominated by women, and you have a perspective as a man to bring to the table that you have to make sure that you're bringing. So our last supervisor always reminded us, the one thing you have to bring to the table that nobody else is going to is that you are men. And so you have to remember that you are speaking for men, and you are speaking for the opinions of men, but also for the outreach that we are going to do to men, or do for men. I guess we don't want to go and do anything to anybody. But it's that thing that is probably the thing most to remember. And it's because, as Bomani was saying, men can get overlooked, and we want to see to it that they're not. And in many aspects of health, something that it came up in October. October is breast cancer awareness month, and there's a lot that's done, about breast cancer. However, a lot of people don't understand that men also get breast cancer. Men have breast tissue, and that tissue can grow into a cancerous state. And there are a lot of men who actually mortality and morbidity for men is higher than it is for women, because often men's breast cancer is detected late. Doctors aren't necessarily looking for you to have breast cancer. Even doctors miss it, and that is a problem. Being men involved in health and in people's health education, those are the types of things that we need to be bringing to the table. And so we have to bear that in mind, that there are issues that men are going to have that are going to be different from those that women have, just because we're different in many ways. And Bomani and I have the responsibility to look out for those things. When we're coming into, we're sitting on a board, we're sitting on in a coalition, always remember that we are speaking for men who are, unlike in so many other things in American culture, our voices are diminished in the field of community health work and in social work, and we need to bring that forward.
Okay, great, thank you. We're gonna move on to the next panel question now, and this one involves best practices. So moving back to Bomani, you spoke about the challenges having one gender and one ethnicity and dealing with people with the opposite oftentimes, or at least one difference in gender or ethnicity. So what are some of the best practices that you feel you could share when dealing with people that aren't of the same gender or ethnicity, to share your views? And also maybe for people of that opposite gender or ethnicity, what are some things that you think could help them become better receivers of that information?
So I don't think it's one answer that can solve that, but I think one of the things is being able to communicate to that person and share your story. I know a lot of times, a lot of times when you're talking about a different race of people, it may be their first time interacting with a Black male. And I think the perception that they may see us on TV is totally different from a real perspective, right? And if you have someone from a different community, I'll say Detroit, that may live in the UP, well, the experience is going to be totally different, and they see it from that side of the mountain. So what I try to do, if they're open, is share my story and share the perspective of men who live in Detroit, and separate from the TV show that you may see, which could be the news, and reality right here. So if you're doing this work, you must come open and be genuine to do the work. And I feel sometimes people fall into this profession, not because they want to do the work. They may just want the financial benefits of it, or they do it to, trying to be politically correct here. They may do it to use Detroit as a stepping stone, and we should not be stepped on and overlooked to get to a place that you're trying to get to. So I try to have those very honest talk with those individuals, and hopefully over time, them getting to know me, getting to know some of the males from the community, getting to know some of the other organizations, they change their perspective, because I think all of us have a different perspective because we come from different homes. So being able to be open to get those perspectives, maybe looking in a different directions, is what I think each one of us are trying to do in our own little small way. So that's my little drop in the bucket, and hopefully it works. If it doesn't, it's gonna be a long ride if we have to work together, you know? So that's my opinion on it.
Great, thanks Bomani. Very helpful to hear. Moving back to Peter, same question. What are some of the best practices that you can share when dealing with people that might have a different background for you? I think it's challenging in that you are dealing with a group of men who are not familiar with lactation, breastfeeding. So what are some of the best practices that you've employed to communicate with them the importance of what you're trying to do?
I would say the best practice is always being open and honest about who you are and what you're doing. Now, one thing, Bomani sort of alluded to it, I actually have some cultural differences even working within men and in Black communities. the impression that most people get of me when I show up to things, Bomani is a foot taller than I am. When I show up to someplace, people think of Carlton Banks for a lot of, all the obvious reasons. And that's not altogether untrue. So I have to understand that I've got some cultural barriers to overcome as well. That's where people are thinking. I am kind of nerdy. So, and I'm speaking about something that generally isn't associated with men talking about it. So I have to be as open and honest about who I am and what I'm doing and what we're talking about, because that establishes credibility. If you don't have that, then you're there wasting your time. At the same time, I also want to make sure that what I'm talking about is accurate, that I'm being as on point as I possibly can. That's what you always want to be doing. As far as the acceptance of working with working with women is, I found actually nothing short of absolute welcome. I actually did expect that me going and becoming a certified lactation counselor, and then in being in groups that would be almost exclusively women, that there was going to be pushback on that. Why is this guy here? And I found absolutely the opposite of that. Embrace, because women in the lactation community have wanted men to be more involved for a long time, and so they're not giving me any pushback or difficulty at all. In fact, they've been of great support for me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peter. Moving on to our next question. You can answer this in one of two ways. So we're wanting to know, what sort of impact have you been able to make in your communities, given your unique perspectives and background, and or what impacts are you still hoping to make, or do you think still need to be made moving forward?
That's a deep question there. So the impact that I hope I'm making in my community is, which I think I am, is with the younger generation, showing up being a dad and a male that's under construction. I don't have all the answers. I'm not afraid to say, I didn't know that. That was a blind side for me. And recognizing some of my biases. And I think trying to understand me better, I can show up to be better for the men and who I serve. So, yeah, I think one of the perspectives I try to bring to be a CHW, not only as a male, but try to make this field feel and make men feel like they can go into this field, whatever experience they may have. A lot of times I'm judged in saying, oh, you must have 2-3 degrees, blah, 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 blah. And that really doesn't matter. And I think I said this at the last court. You really have to love men where they are, right? And regardless of where their faults may be, I'm the biggest advocate, but I will be the first to criticize you and say, this doesn't look right. So I want to be very tough with them, but I also want to love them like they're my own brother. And I think the work we do, so many men fall short on just that emotional piece of nurturing. And I want to be that one that show up to be like, hey, I love you, bruh. We can make this work. You made a mistake, but you got tomorrow to make up for that mistake. So let's see what we can do to help you, and let's go ahead and go forward. So that's where I try to fall in at.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I think that's good advice, not just for your specific area, but also for all people in social work and for parents everywhere. It's just showing up, you know, and then the rest of it will eventually fall into place. Okay, moving to you, Peter, same question. What sort of impact do you think you've been able to make in your community? And is there any other impact or goal that you have to make moving forward?
Well, one of the positive impacts that I've been able to make, and Bomani and I together through seminars that we put on together, is just teaching men that this is a normal thing. That being involved with your children and when they're very young, that being involved in breastfeeding, in diaper changing, in picking them up and holding them because that's what they want, because that's a lot of the reason the baby's going to cry. Just making a mistake, they're going to cry because they want you to pick them up. All of those things are manly things to do, and getting men to not be afraid to do that, to understand that this is your place. I think that's an impact that we've made. An impact that I really want to make, that I'm excited to take on, is getting to a point where we have renormalized breastfeeding and breastfeeding culture in African American culture and in American culture in general, so that it doesn't look weird when we see a woman who is nursing her baby when we're out someplace. That shouldn't be strange. That shouldn't be something that's not acceptable to happen here. That it should be hidden. That's got to be normal again, because as I said before, breast milk is the best food your baby is ever going to have for the rest of their life. It's nearly genetically made for each baby. It's got 100% of the nutrients they want. It has protections against many diseases like skin diseases, and babies that are breastfed are way ahead of the curve on health, prevention of childhood diabetes and things of that nature. That's where we want our children to be, and we need to renormalize that. One of the other soapboxes that I like to get on is that there are many issues like domestic violence that people look at, that have been looked at as women's issues. And domestic violence, as far as I'm concerned, I think I can speak for Bomani, that's a men's issue. Domestic violence is by and large done by men. Men have the keys as to whether or not we stop that. And the same with acceptance of breastfeeding and making account for women who need to nurse in the office or at a workplace, making sure that there's a clean and safe and comfortable space for a woman to pump if she's going to be pumping at work. Men control that too, because it's one of those things that if we make that acceptable among ourselves, then we are going to make that acceptable and demand that for the women that we work with, because we want that for our partners. You know, I want to make sure that my partner has it available to her to feed my child if she needs to during the workday. And so I'm going to make sure that other women have that same right. That's one of the things that I want to see happen, and reminding men of where they are and what their power is in making that happen is one of the things that I want to do. Last thing I'll say on that, that focus group that led me to this work. One of the things that all the men said that when we asked them, what is your primary responsibility as a father? And 3 things came up that men had on their list. It was provide for your children, protect your children, and teach your children. And if you're going to provide, protect, and teach, well, seeing to it that your child has the ability to get this important food, to be fed, to be clothed, that's 2 of those things that you're supposed to be doing as a dad, according to dads that we spoke to. And so this is a part of making your children better and having their start in life be better. So yeah, it's a little bit of a soapbox. I'll keep talking about this if you let me.
We probably will. We have another question to go. Thank you. Admirable goals for both of you. I can't believe it's been almost 45 minutes already, but we're down to our last question. So going back to Bomani, The last question is, it's going to be challenging, as I'm sure you're aware, but what are some of your thoughts on how we can encourage more men to become community health workers?
Well, I think one of the things that I would like to see is maybe in more of the advertising, have images of men interacting in there. I think that's the first step. Since we're not in brick and mortars anymore, we're kind of like at home. Facebook page, just having men like Peter and myself kind of like interacting with being a CHW. I think that's the first sign that says men are welcome in this space. And I think the other piece is men like Peter and myself, and even Jerry, being very recruiting men to come here and explaining to them why they should be here and what purpose will they hold and what do they bring to the table. 9 times out of 10, men just want to be told what to do and how to get there, right? And once they're in the room and you see value in them, I think it goes from there. And in my own living experience was with the Head Start, as I said earlier, was this one woman who is 5'2", putting my name up on the board and saying, you're going to run for president and you're going to win. I was like, oh, okay. And once I got there, I was like, wow, why didn't I do this last year? And, you know, volunteering my time and things like that. It made me feel good. I was still around not only my children, but other children. And I got to interact with some of those dads that were walking into the door, which they kind of like looked at me and said, why are you here? And you got that opportunity to talk with them and share different information. So if I was with the CHW, and I will give a shout out to yourself, Portia, Nicole. You guys do a great job involving men and bringing and open to have men here. So I want to applaud that piece of it. So I think that's what I would like to share, is just making sure men feel like they are welcome. And then once they walk through the door, I think it's a given. They'll chip in. So that's my take on it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bomani. Thank you for those encouraging words. It makes me feel like it will be challenging, but it's definitely not impossible. So moving back to Peter, your last question, same thing. Do you have any thoughts on how we can encourage more men to become CHWs? And you're on mute, Peter. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was excited to get at that. I think the way we involve men and we encourage men to do it is it's simply just get out there and do that. I was looking around. It looks like there's a little more than a half a dozen men who are on this call as well. And a couple of them I know, Brother Burnett and Brenda Smith and I were in the same CHW class. Letting men know that being a CHW is a lot like being active in your community, only on a broader level. You know, it's generally not that difficult to get men to come out and do something like drive around in a car on the neighborhood radio patrol, which I do in my neighborhood, or get involved with your kid's sports team because you see a value to that. You want to coach the kids. You want to be around young people when they're developing in the game. You know, that's the kind of thing that men are often asked to do. But asking men to talk with other men about their health, to talk about the health of the community, whether or not we have access to healthy fruit and vegetables in stores that are within a comfortable distance in our communities. Those are things that I would simply say, talk with men about, which Bomani and I both do. This is something that you can do. It's within your power to make your community better, and this is a way to do it. You know, I had another career as a political activist, and getting people to get out and register to vote and write letters to their city council people or the mayor or their congress people, getting them to understand that they've got political power. This is the same thing, only different. It's getting people to understand that they've got power in their community and they can use that to make themselves and their community healthier. It's just about getting out and talking to the people and meeting them where they are.
Okay, well, I feel very encouraged and very motivated that this is something that can actually happen. I want to thank you both for all of your insight and what you've shared. And now we are going to move on to the chat where there are a few questions. So let's see, I'm going to go back to the first one.
So while you're looking for the questions, Portia, I wanted to add on too that Peter pointed out a good point, that there are men that's in this circle right now as we speak, and maybe CHWs, maybe we should come up with a CHW like warriors or men group that can recruit other men. I was just brainstorming, I threw the name out to allow us to speak to those different men in our different communities. So just wanted to add that on.
So a male CHW group?
Yeah, and it could be like CHW, but we could be the CHW Warriors or something. I don't know.
Bomani,
I think it's a great idea.
I think you just volunteered to be the president of something else, Bomani.
Yeah, Bomani, you're going to run for president and you're going to win.
Thank you.
Okay, so a question from Brenda Smith is, how difficult has it been to recruit men in your specific areas of specialization? Is that something you've tried to do? Have you had any difficulty?
No, because I think we just try to design our program that fits men, and we ask for their input on it, right? Okay, well, what would you like to see, and how would you like to see this program work? And I think that's the best place, is asking the 5 W's. What are we doing? Why did this didn't work? And digging in and having men feedback on that, and building the program around them that fits them. Because like Peter said, each one of us are different and we come from different places. So of course it's hard getting men to participate, but once they participate, it's like a rolling ball down, a snowball going down the cliff. It just picks up steams and it just keeps picking up. So we have our challenges like every other group, but Zoom makes that better now because you can just do it from the phone.
Sure. Peter, you're on mute. Same question. Have you tried to recruit anyone? Any challenges?
I have tried to recruit men into being community health workers. As I was saying before, I look at it the same as when I was doing things, going door to door, doing political and neighborhood political work. It's the same thing. Now, I have not personally yet tried to get other men interested in becoming a lactation counselor. I don't see any reason why I should continue to be a community of one. That would be great to get more men involved in that. And that's just a matter of making a pitch for that whenever I'm out talking to them. Hey, this is something you can do. I'm not that unique. If this is something you're interested in doing, I know one other man in this state who is interested in becoming a lactation counselor for much the same reason that I'm doing it, is pushing for breastfeeding and seeing to it that our children are being fed the best thing they can possibly get at the beginning of their lives. And I give him encouragement as much as I can to, get on board and go ahead and do it. Encouraging men to become a community health worker, as I said, it isn't any easier or harder than encouraging them to do anything else that we need done in our communities.
Okay, great. So for the 12 of you male CHWs on this call, that was your recruitment speech. So I hope that you were listening. Just a few shout outs from the chat. Tamika Jackson Dyer says she's here. Thanks for joining us. She's a former Head Start parent board member. Miss Felicia Lane said that she is proud of both of your journeys. Tamika Jackson Dyer said, go Peter, we appreciate you and your work. Brenda Smith, great journeys, Peter and Bomani, you are appreciated. Tanasia said, thank you for your insight. And Stephanie Fisher agreed that you really need to enjoy this work. You have to love the work that you do. A lot of thank yous, really great job. And I believe that that's it for the questions in the chat. If anyone else has another question, now is your last chance. Any other questions?
So
okay,
I also want to say too, and I'm sorry for interrupting, Portia. I'm at work, so I'm supposed to have this mask on, but for the people that do this work, I know that is, sorry, no, the word it doesn't work, that does this work with males, I really ask each one of us to check our bias. And what I say by that is one of the biases I have, which I'm going to share publicly here, is every time that I saw a woman that had 2 or more children, I thought she had like different fathers and everything like that. And it was not until my daughter said something to me and said, well, Dad, why are you judging somebody and you do this work and how can you work with them? And I was like, oh, okay. And she was like 14 at that time. And then ever since then, I really try to work on that. Before I walk in the room, I'm always saying, Bomani, put yourself in check. You're here to serve them and do the best that you can. So I just ask everyone, especially now, please just try to kind of like put a pin in it or pause yourself, 10 seconds, kind of like regroup it, and then work with your clients because we really need it. The resources are limited, and what we bring to the table sometimes is just joy or just a sympathetic ear to hear where they are. And you want to make sure you show up to be the best who you can be. So I just say that in closing.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I'd like to jump in on,
go ahead.
Just real quick.
Sure.
There are a dozen men on this call, and I think I'm going to piggyback on what Bomani said. You know, I really am interested in having us get together and have a subcommittee on MISHWA because there's something unique that we have to bring to the table that we're going to bring to our communities, and we ought to be supporting each other in doing that. And so later, Portia, you and Bomani and I need to talk. We'll see what we can do about that because I really want to see this move forward and more men see this is a viable career. This is something that you can do that not only can you have it as a job that you know brings you economic benefit, but you're bringing benefit to your community. You're making it better, which is what we're all supposed to be doing. So yeah, let's get on that. I for all of you brothers who are on this call, when you hear from me, take the call.
Okay, great. And we'll see what we can do about creating a networking group so that we can try to get more men recruited to at least join the group and then hopefully recruit more male CHWs moving forward. So everyone's going to get an email after this webinar requesting that they take a survey. In order to get your CEUs, you're going to have to click on the link in SurveyMonkey. It's also in the chat here. So if you want to go to the chat, you can cut and paste it. If you fill out that survey and submit it, then you will receive in a couple of days a certificate to upload in the registry that you can use for continuing education credits. You will not automatically receive that unless you click the link, either that you copy out of the chat or that you receive in your email and complete that survey so we can send that certificate to you. I just want to thank again both of our panel members. I want to thank Nicole at MISHWA for helping to host. And if everyone wants to come off of mute now so we can say goodbye, thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see you soon at our next webinar. We have lots of
had a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job. Good